Tim MacMahon covers the NBA for ESPN Dallas.com. You hear him on ESPN 103.3 FM as well. He's also spent a little time at Valley Ranch through the years, so we'll talk some Cowboys here in a minute. First, the Mavs draft. I get the feeling they would have rather taken one of those point guards that got away just a few picks ahead of them, but they appear to be satisfied with the guy they got.
Yeah, Jerry and Grant, Daylon Wright went 19 and 20. The Mavericks had 21. They would have preferred one of those guys, but they do feel like Justin Anderson is a guy they were high on, impressed in his workout, a smart guy, and really what they think he can be is a more athletic Jay Crowder with a better jump shot. He's a role player, but a guy they think can immediately come in right away and be an energetic, athletic type of energy guy.
And that's so vital this year to have a guy who can contribute right away. Obviously, they could not afford any sort of project with that pick, but they can't afford to have a guy who's not able to come in and give them meaningful minutes right away, given the rebuilding they have to do.
Yeah, and look, they're about due to land on a draft pick. I mean, usually about once a decade they'll hit on one, so this would be a good time because basically you look at the roster right now, he's the sixth man. Obviously, they're going to fill that out, but they do need Anderson to be a rotation player right away.
And as reluctant as Carlisle is to give meaningful minutes to rookies, this is the type of player for which he would make an exception, you get the feeling.
Right, and I would also argue that Carlisle's reluctance and the quality of the rookies that he's had at his disposal in Dallas, there's a direct correlation there.
Yeah, right. Now the annual off-season of speculation begins. The efforts kick into high gear for free agency. LaMarcus Aldridge sounds like he might be more interested than Lakers or Spurs. We can talk about him, though. But DeAndre Jordan of the Clippers reportedly will talk to the Mavs and others when free agency opens late Tuesday night. Let's talk about Jordan first of all. How likely is it the Mavs end up with him, do you think?
Well, it's a lot more likely than LaMarcus Aldridge. Basically, it seems like they are kind of running out the ground ball with LaMarcus. Now, DeAndre, sources are telling me it will either be the Mavericks or the Clippers. Really, a lot depends on how convincing the Mavericks are during their meetings, but I will say Chandler Parsons has really caught DeAndre Jordan's attention. He's been working this for a while and really kind of kicked it in overdrive this last week and visited Jordan in Houston last weekend after the draft, flew out to L.A., has been out there hanging out with Jordan since then. And again, my understanding is that this is more than likely coming down to Mavericks or Clippers. And CP3 throws those sweet lob passes, but the relationship between those two, there's been reports, and I've also heard, is not exactly happy-go-lucky.
And obviously, you know, Jordan, the type of player that a lot of teams would covet, but one that the Mavs especially would like as a rim protector and a great rebounder, best in the league. Tyson Chandler, of course, is already here, has been here. He's in wait-and-see mode now. It was awkward, to say the least, at the Heroes game last night when Dez Bryant took the microphone and implored the fans to try to convince Jordan to come to Dallas through any means possible through social media, and Chandler's standing right there.
Yeah, a little bit awkward. The good news is we all know Tyson Chandler's a consummate professional. He understands the business of basketball as well as anybody. You remember what happened in 2011. He wanted to be back in Dallas. The Mavericks didn't make a multi-year offer. Off he goes to New York. He's been traded several times in his career, and he's going to do what's best for him and his family, as he said last night. He understands the Mavericks are going to do best what's for the franchise. And it has to sting a little bit to be the second choice at center when you've been as productive for the Mavericks as he has been in both of his stints. But he also gets that DeAndre Jordan is 6 years younger than him, led the league in rebound in the last 2 years, led the league in field goal percentage the last 3 years. And so, you know, we'll see how quickly things play out with Jordan, then we'll see if Tyson will be patient enough to let those things play out. But it could be in his best interest to do so, because there's certainly the possibility of a sign and trade that would send him to the Clippers, and that would be I would think, a very attractive situation to him.
Yeah, real quick, you mentioned Chandler Parsons as a recruiter. Obviously, he's coming back from a serious knee situation. Monte Ellis now likely gone, but Parsons, a lot of things are going to run through him, regardless of whom they're able to acquire other players through the offseason. So, huge year coming up for him.
Parsons is fired up. I mean, truth be told, he's glad Monte Ellis is gone.
Right.
Okay. I mean, we had him on the radio the other day, and he said, the way he put it was, he's more than ready to be a star. He really feels like if you let him be the point forward that they, gave him $46 million to be, then he can put up numbers. Then he can be one of the top players at that position in the NBA, and he's going to have the chance to prove that next season. He does fully expect, though, to be ready to go for the regular season opener.
Mavs, in many ways, starting from scratch, rebuilding a roster yet again. You've been a keen Rick Carlisle observer, shall we say. How frustrating is this for him to be put in this position year after year, you think?
Yeah, you will never, ever hear Rick Carlisle complain about it. That much I can guarantee. But he's a championship Cowboy coach. He's proven that, and he has not had the opportunity to compete for championships since he finally got to the top of the mountain. Now he's going into the last season of his contract, and this is pure speculation here, but I would say if the Mavericks strike out again this summer, this very well could be Rick Carlisle's last year in Dallas, and that would be his decision to go pursue other challenges that would give him a better opportunity to compete for a championship.
Yeah, coaching careers, don't last forever. I mean, he's a relatively young guy, but the clock is ticking on all of our careers, and Rick Carlisle is aware of that as everybody else is. Let's go to Cowboys now. Back to Dez. His representatives reportedly talked with Cowboys brass this past week. The deadline to get a long-term deal done is July 15th, 2 weeks from Wednesday. Bottom line, you think it'll happen, or does he play under the franchise tag this year?
I'm still skeptical that it happens. I think most likely he ends up playing for the franchise tag, but this is a significant development, and essentially what the Cowboys have done here is they have not really had serious conversations, serious negotiations with his agent since he switched agents. So they've kind of given this a 2+ week window to work it out, and obviously that creates some urgency, and sometimes deadlines are what gets deals done. But my gut feeling is he would play for the $12.8 million this year.
He has to drive his agent crazy because he shows up at the mini camp that day and he's doing backflips in the outfield at a celebrity baseball game. It just kills Dez to even think about possibly not playing football for a while or having to throw that probably idle threat out there.
I don't think that threat's being taken too seriously at Valley Ranch. I'll just put it that way. His passion is too strong for anybody to realistically think Dez Bryant is going to sit at home and watch the season opener.
One of the biggest questions, of course, entering camp, who will be the lead running back? Everybody seems to think they want Joseph Randle to have the job. You wonder if McFadden has anything left. What's your take on that?
Well, I don't know if it's so much that you want Joseph Randle as you don't want Darren McFadden. Let's be honest, the last 3 years in Oakland, Darren McFadden is 3.3, 3.4 yards per carry. And as much as you want to say, well, that's the Raiders' offensive line, who can succeed behind that line. Well, there were other backs for the Raiders each of those seasons that were much more effective. Randle last year, limited doses, very limited doses, was impressive. Now, it's one thing to do it 51 carries a season. It's another thing, like DeMarco Murray, when you might get 51 carries in a week.
Right.
So we'll see. But I definitely think that Randle is the best candidate that they have on the roster right now.
Well, I think they're going to miss Murray, especially early on, so much more than they think they are. And I think the fans are going to miss him so much more than they think they do. It's because of the type of physical runner he was. And we've talked about, the Randle comments about leaving meat on the bone and all that. But Murray was underrated in terms of turning negative runs potentially into at least, runs with no loss. And those are the things that just don't get noticed.
Yeah, and that's why Jason Garrett was pounding his fist trying to get the Cowboys to cough up the cash that would have taken to get to DeMarco Murray, because, Garrett calls those the dirty yards, the dirty runs. And that's definitely something that the Cowboys will miss if somebody's not able to fill those shoes. I still wouldn't rule out the Cowboys finding another running back either on waivers or through a trade in August.
All right, Cowboys do report to camp a month from today. It could feel in some ways like an old-time camp because there'll be controversy there. Greg Hardy will be on hand, and there'll be sky-high expectations. Are those expectations warranted in the opinion of Tim MacMahon, and how high should those expectations be?
Well, I will warn you like this. Every time I think the Cowboys are Super Bowl contenders, they completely flop. I mean, we remember 2008. We remember Wade Phillips last season. But you look at this team, if Tony Romo's healthy, they've got a franchise quarterback coming off of his best season. He's looked better this offseason physically than he did even last year. Dez Bryant obviously is an elite receiver, the best offensive line in football. And then just from a personnel standpoint, they've made some significant upgrades defensively, and we all know Rod Marinelli is one of the best in the business at his job. So I think optimism is definitely warranted, and the Cowboys look to me to be the NFC's favorites, and then you see what happens from there.
Tim MacMahon, ESPN online at ESPNDallas.com, on the radio at 103.3 FM. Always great having Timmy Mack in studio Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate you having me.